welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the Last Place You Look edition. Today is episode 198, Woolly Mammoth Skeletons Found Under Wine Cellar, and Bear Meat Causes Parasitic Worm Outbreak at a Family Barbecue. My friends, first things first, happy birthday to us. Yep, that's right, this here little podcast and the flock are officially a whopping 4 years old, which means not only do we have some teeth, but we've grown by leaps and bounds, goddammit. Episode 200 is on the horizon, and well over 1,500 of you have subscribed on and are listening via Spotify. Hello. Oh, speaking of which, y'all, if you haven't, subscribing is free. So is hitting 5 stars and leaving a review if your app of choice allows it. And I'm giving flirty eyes to you, Apple listeners. All of these things have added up. And that's how and that's why we've made it to the Big 4. Such a milestone for a podcast just cannot happen without devoted, brilliant listeners like you. So from the bottom of my equally weird, curious, and gorgeous heart to yours, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy birthday. I really like getting older with you. I mean, it's fun. I've lost count. How many times we've traveled the world, traveled back in time, traveled way the fuck back in time, or left Earth entirely, all to experience a mind-blowing discovery. And today, I have some great news. Sometimes you don't have to go to such lengths to get such a thrill. Sometimes the weird is right in front of you. In the first half of the show, we're going to push our way into a man's home in Austria because, as it turns out, underneath his feet were the bones of 30 to 40,000-year-old woolly mammoths. Like, plural, more than one. Yeah. A little home renovation, inspired by his love of wine, led to a discovery not seen in the country of Austria itself in well over 100 years. We will get into just how many woolies were under this man's house, how they were found, and what it means when it comes to our understanding of woolly mammoths and our ancestors' relationship with them. This is all thanks to wine, of course. Then after the break, a story that is truly the physical manifestation of Well, That's Interesting. It includes an innocent gathering of friends and family, an accidental infestation, a hospitalization, and the realization as to what, or rather who, is inside the body of a human host. We also have some horrendous cooking advice thrown in for good measure too. My friends, we're heading on over to South Dakota, where a family reunion went terribly wrong. I mean, it eventually ends well, but to get there, some terrible choices had to be made first. We will get into why North American black bear meat probably isn't the best choice at your next barbecue. And to be honest, now that I look at the date, I should have brought this up a few weeks ago, a little earlier at the beginning of summer, but better late than never, I suppose. We will get into the details of this reunion. Who brought the friggin' bear meat? Just how many people got sick and why? And really, just why in general. Just why. Why for all of it. And we will get to all of it. So please, grab a plate. And in the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha. And if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my celebratory business goose. To begin, I'm going to need you to pack your fanciest goblet, some sunscreen, and some Tylenol because we're about to do some serious day drinking throughout the vineyards of Austria, a country that is in no way, shape, or form a newcomer when it comes to wine. According to atasteofaustria.org, this country has been producing vino for centuries, with the earliest evidence of winemaking dating back to the Celts and Romans of 700 BC, just a wee 2,700 years ago. In more recent times, though, in 2022, Austria exported a staggering 68 million liters and still produced enough to go around locally, with the average Austrian drinking approximately 27 liters. That's about 7 gallons, y'all. Jeez. I'm impressed because, for context, your average American, we just drink about 14 liters of wine a year, or just a smidge over 3 gallons, which is about half of that. Wow, but I can't blame them for all the imbibing. Please, my friends, head on over to our social media stuffs and tap on today's post. There you shall see a delightful graphic, as provided by AustrianWine.com, as to why Austrian wines are some of the best-selling and tastiest options out there on the market. Go ahead, I'll give you a sec. Now, if you're too busy double-fisting some Riesling yourself, not a problem. Please sip away, and I'll just describe the image for you. Please, imagine Europe, and we're spanning from France all the way to East Hungary. Perfect, thank you. Now, point to the center, or just a little off-center, because here in the middle is Austria, which is getting rammed from all sides by 4 extraordinarily pleasing climates. Oh, God. Did you just spit out some wine? I know. That was graphic and it took a turn, but for real. Austria receives the moderate Atlantic climate from the west, cool air from the north, warm air from below off the Italian peninsula, and a dry climate from the east out of Hungary. In sum, my friends, nature does most of the work when it comes to growing delicious grapevines, so it's no surprise winemaking and bottling at home is definitely an option for those who have the room. Those lucky enough, like Andreas Pernerstorfer, who calls the village of Gobelsberg home. And if you're wondering, yes, this will get increasingly more Austrian. And if you're just dying to know where Gobelsberg is in relation to the 4 ramming climates, don't worry, I've got you here too. I know you want to know. Please keep open today's post, or if you have it open, just look at Austria on the map there, and point to the northeast corner. Okay, there is Austria's capital, Vienna, and just to its left is the district of Krems, or Krems. I will continue to pronounce things that way, and I'm so sorry. Anyway, this is where Gobelsberg can be found, and it's getting directly pounded by 3 of the 4 climates. It's a good place to be. And Andreas really wanted to make the most of it by renovating his family's home, specifically giving the old cellar a modern jauge and converting it into a wine cellar. But having been inherited from his grandfather, well, Andreas had his work cut out for him. And of the many tasks he needed to tackle, he started with clearing out the cellar floor. When the dirt foundation was eventually exposed, there looked to be only shards of wood remaining, just sticking out of the ground. And when Andreas bent down to pluck one out, it didn't budge. This called for some tools, so, with a garden shovel in one hand and a grip on this stubborn piece of wood in the other, he began to dig, and dig, and dig. And a few minutes into this digging, it dawned on him. Quote, "I thought it was just a piece of wood left by my grandfather, but then I dug it out a bit and remembered that in the past, my grandfather said he had found teeth. And then I immediately thought it was a mammoth." End quote. Andreas told the Austrian Broadcasting Corporation, ORF. And my friends, I bet you want to pause here and rewind. Yeah, let's. But yes, at some point inside the Pernerstorfer family home, Grandpa found some teeth in the cellar. And in a most Austrian response, no one thought much about looking into it. Please, put a pin in this kind of attitude about bones. We will get back to it. For Andreas, however, his mind immediately went into overdrive and excitement. If you head on over to our social media stuffs and tap on today's post, please swipe past that explicit image of colliding climates, and you'll see a series of screenshots that explain why his mind instantly went to Mammoth. My friends, just last week, in episode 197, we covered the incredible discovery of the Midnight Terror Cave, which is a lot. The Mayans used it for several thousand years as a sacrificial burial plot for their rain god, Chak. Just under 10,000 human bones were recovered here. So if you haven't had a listen, you should. You definitely should. And if you have had a listen and you took a peek at those photos for that episode, then the photos here that we have today will look familiar, yet distinctly different. My sleuthy business goose, as you can see, there are quite a number of bones. The exposed floor is just riddled with them, and it's overwhelming. That's the familiar part. But what's different here, in this instance, is that these bones are clearly not human. They are massive. Let's get into it. Andreas rang up the Federal Monuments Office and explained the very big bone he just found under his family's home. And once again, in a most Austrian manner, the Monuments Office referred him to the correct office, which was the Austrian Archaeological Institute of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. So, tales were retold, and the Archaeological Institute was fucking head over heels. By mid-May, just a month and change later, the Institute had a full team working on Andreas' cellar, scraping away layer upon layer. It did not disappoint. Quote, "Our older and more experienced team members at the Academy had never seen something like this before, and they have seen a lot." End quote. Hannah Perot-Souchon, a member of the team, told NBC News, "The find has been called an archaeological sensation." End quote. My equally sensational business goose. Alongside Hannah was archaeologist Thomas Ianvargerer, nailed it, and a dynamic, nerdy bunch whose sharp eyes saw something priceless between the piles of bones. They also found stone artifacts and charcoal, which means, 1, these items can be carbon dated to accurately estimate the age of the bones, and 2, they provide context to the scene unfolding before them. Oh my hungry business goose. The team ran some clickety-clack calculations and, drumroll please, thank you in the back, it was determined 30 to 40,000 years ago, the land under the Pernersdorfer home was once a place where woolly mammoths were butchered and eaten by humans living during the oldest Stone Age period known as the Upper Paleolithic. Again, 40,000 years ago. Now, if this sounds like an incredibly rare discovery, you're absolutely right, for a number of reasons. As of the time I wrote these notes, on June 4th, the team was still excavating artifacts and bones. There are just so many. There are so many, actually. It's believed not 1, not 2, but the remains of 3 woolly mammoths are scattered here. Also, a discovery like this, literally, is once in a lifetime. According to the Austrian Archaeological Institute, their website, oeaw.ac.at, you know the one, the last time a similar, significant, and successful, I'm still thinking about that climate graphic, you know. The last time a similar, significant, and successful archaeological dig like this, the last time it occurred, was around 150 years ago, in an adjacent lot, where flint artifacts and jewelry fossils and charcoal were found. And why, though, it's been so long? Well, it's time to unpin that pin, my friends. That website also mentions, quote, "While other comparable sites have been discovered in Austria and neighboring countries, most of them were excavated at least 100 years ago and have largely been lost due to the way the research was handled. Back then, key details about the environment in which the remains were found in and in what condition were rarely recorded," end quote. And, quote, "Some remains were even sold to soap factories," end quote. Hannah told NBC News. Y'all, I think we can agree getting rid of remains is never a good look. Luckily, in this case, every bone is going to be accounted for, and the plan is to send each to the Vienna Museum Natural History for restoration and further research, and to answer all the questions you may be asking. Like, how exactly did these mammoths die? I mean, how could a group of people take down one, let alone three? Also, did this happen at the same time or in separate hunting sessions? Those are great points. I am so glad you asked. The team's current theories are, drumroll please, quote, "We have strong indications that they hunted for them, but we have no idea how." Hannah told NBC News, "We know that elephants have issues with slopes, so maybe they were hunted on a slope and therefore vulnerable." By using modern 3D mapping technology, the team can find out more about these mammoths, how they died, and what happened to the bones in the years since. End quote. So, slopes? Maybe. Let's just continue to watch this space. If you had to listen to episode 183, how woolly mammoth tusks are like diaries, then you know. Even the slightest material extracted from their remains can reveal an entire lifetime. Oh, R.I.P. Elma, a.k.a. Elma Ujee, a.k.a. Hello Lookin', pounding my chest for you, girl. Anyway, I for one am very excited to see what comes of this and to think it all started with wine. Yeah. After the break, I'll have a bunch of answers for you, and a barbecue of a different kind. We are leaving Austria for South Dakota. And what the humans ingested here, well, let's just say it led to a family gathering they will never forget. Stay tuned.
When Johann Rall received the letter on Christmas Day 1776, he put it away to read later. Maybe he thought it was a season's greeting and wanted to save it for the fireside. But what it actually was a warning, delivered to the Hessian colonel, letting him know that General George Washington was crossing the Delaware and would soon attack his forces. The next day, when Rall lost the Battle of Trenton and died from 2 colonial Boxing Day musket balls, the letter was found, unopened, in his vest pocket. As someone with 15,000 unread emails in his inbox, I feel like there's a lesson there. Oh well, this is The Constant, a history of getting things wrong. I'm Mark Chrysler. Every episode, we look at the bad ideas, mistakes, and accidents that misshaped our world. Find us at constantpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you enjoy bizarre true stories, then the Useless Information Podcast is the podcast for you. For example, did you know that author Robert Louis Stevenson gave his birthday away? Or that there was a football team that played for 6 years before someone realized that the school never ever existed? Or that a dog in upstate New York was once placed on trial for murder? Well, to hear these and hundreds of additional fascinating true stories from the flip side history, be sure to check out the Useless Information Podcast. That's the Useless Information Podcast, podcasting worldwide since 2008 and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. Be sure to check it out.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, I hope you're still holding on to your fanciest goblet, some sunscreen, and some Tylenol, because we are still day drinking. This time in the vast expanse that is South Dakota. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who may be wondering where this is exactly among all the other states, don't worry, I've got you. Please imagine the clusterfuck that is the United States. Thank you very much. Point to the middle there. Okay, there is Kansas. To the north is Nebraska. And just above that is South Dakota. A few fun facts about this state. It's a really big rectangle, measuring about 76,000 square miles. And although its slogan is "Great Faces, Great Places," you're not going to see that many faces. There's only about 900,000 residents here. So divided by the amount of space, that's about 10 people per square mile when you're outside the most populated city of Sioux Falls. Back in early July of 2022, however, there was a small bump in numbers. For you see, somewhere along the rolling picturesque hills here, a family reunion was taking place. Folks as close as Minnesota to the immediate right, to those from Arizona in the far southwest, gathered here in the middle in South Dakota, just to catch up. And, from what I'm guessing, as provided by the timeline in the CDC's metal as fuck publication called Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, whoa, they probably were also blowing shit up in honor of Independence Day. And God knows, if you're not grilling something on this sacred day too, what kind of fucking American are you? So, a barbecue was well underway, food was served alongside family gossip, and just like that, just like the American dream, it all came and went. Folks returned to Arizona, and one particular 29-year-old man returned to Minnesota, where just 6 short days later, his body didn't feel like his own. The pain throughout his muscles was so intense, he sought medical help 3 times in the span of 2 weeks. Yet each doctor's visit ended the same. Here, take this and go get some rest. By the 17th day, his symptoms were exponentially worse, so much so that you could literally see them on his face. From the report, published just this May 23rd, the man admitted himself to a local hospital presenting with, quote, fever, severe myalgia, preorbital edema, it gets better, eosinophilia, and other laboratory abnormalities, end quote. My friends, these are very fancy-ass words for muscle pain, swollen eyeballs. And if you had to listen to last week's episode, then eosinophilia should sound a little familiar. It is making another appearance here today. Eosinophils are a type of white blood cell that help your immune system fight allergies and infections. And our patient's blood work came back with numbers that were elevated as fuck. So someone in the emergency room must have had a eureka moment, because finally, the 4th time was the charm here. They had asked him if he had ever eaten anything unusual, like game meat that's unusual for even game meat. I'm talking about polar bear, wolverine, cougar, black bear. There it was. Our patient had remembered, at the reunion, one family member had a hunting escapade in northern Saskatchewan, Canada, and bagged themselves a black bear 2 months prior. Now, hunting black bears is legal in Canada, and according to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection website, you can bring that dead body back into the United States if, quote, accompanied by proof of species documentation, such as labeling or a receipt from a processing facility, end quote. You also need to show your hunting license and ID to get all of that paperwork done, yada, yada, yada. But if hunting wild animals like black bear sound like they could come with a few surprises on the inside, you're right. That's why processing facilities are generally a good way to stay safe. Now, which processing facility this hunter went to is not noted in the CDC report, but the hunter told Jen Christensen of CNN that, quote, the hunting outfitter had recommended freezing the meat to kill any potential parasites, end quote. So, that's what the hunter did. They followed that advice, and for about 45 days, the bear meat was frozen. Until that special day, the family reunion. 8 members gathered around the barbecue, fashioning the meat into kababs, alternating bear ball with veggies. Now, here's a fun fact about black bear meat. It's dark. So, when you have it on a grill, judging its doneness by sight is really tough to do. In a most American manner, the doneness was guesstimated, with a few pokes and shrugs, and with that, the kebabs were served. A few bites in, someone had their eureka moment and spoke up. Maybe we should leave it on the grill for a few more minutes. Something is a little off. The family members agreed, and back on the grill the kebabs went. In a most American fashion, the doneness was guesstimated once again, with a few pokes and a few shrugs, and it was determined this time around, it's ready to eat. Needless to say, it was not. Let's get into it. After the reunion's menu was disclosed to the medical staff, our 29-year-old patient was tested for trichinella. a type of roundworm not only found in polar bears, wolverines, cougars, and black bears, but wild boar, wolves, and squirrels. Good news, smoking, salting, drying, and microwaving the meat does not always kill these worms or their larvae. And although freezing kills Trichinella species found in our porky friends, other Trichinella species, including T. nativa, the one our patient tested positive for, those are totally freeze resistant. Whoops. So, according to the CDC, the most certain way to kill all versions of this parasite is to cook that there meat to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees Celsius. So please be sure to use a thermometer, not a poke. And if you are wondering what could happen if one does consume this roundworm, oh, I got you here too, don't worry. Quote, once they're in the digestive system, the larvae grow up and make their own babies, which work their way into muscles, causing symptoms such as those experienced by the man who ate the bear meat. If the parasite moves into the gastrointestinal tract, it can cause abdominal pain, diarrhea, or vomiting. Occasionally, there may be life-threatening symptoms such as heart problems, trouble with the central nervous system, and breathing issues if the worms migrate there. End quote. From the wonderfully named Holly Large of IFL Science and, of course, Jen of CNN. Ooh, thankfully, I have good news. For real. Our patient was given albendazole to kill his guests. It's a standard FDA-approved medication for the treatment of a variety of parasitic worm infections. He is now okay. He's okay. Probably just a little hesitant about the next family reunion. Speaking of which, if you're wondering about the other family members, and I know you are, because that's the kind of person you are, yes, there were 8 of them. So please, take a guess as to what happened. Yes, that's right, you got it. 6 of the 8, including 4 who consumed the bear meat and the veggies, and 2 who just ate only the veggies, had symptoms consistent with trichoneliosis. That's right. A round of applause. Yep. No, you're right. You should. That's right. You should clap. A round of applause, everyone. Thank you. That's right. Yes, my daring business goose. Even the folks who just ate the vegetables got sick thanks to cross-contamination. Ooh. And while our patient was in the emergency room, remember that? 2 other family members were hospitalized at the same time. But I am happy to say all 6 symptomatic family members recovered and probably learned a valuable lesson. At least, I hope so. It's estimated that up to 24% of black bears in Canada and Alaska are infected with trichinella, and that number goes up among predators that are strict carnivores, like our toothy amigos polar bears, wolverines, and cougars. So please, for the love of God, if you can, just go to Trader Joe's. And thank you. And happy birthday. Here's just to so many more. So thank you again. I'm just speechless. So please be sure to subscribe, rate, leave a review. You can just say hi. If you don't know what to say, just say hi. But please be sure to tell your friends about all the bodies in that guy's cellar. Oh, God. Just start it with that. Maybe don't even follow up. And then tell your friends don't eat bear meat, or, cook it to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, or just, like I said, just Trader Joe's is right there. I could see it from here. And an infectious thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you'll love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.